Welcome to Alzheimer Speaks Radio. I'm your host, Laurie Gredlein, and I'm so excited that you're joining us today. We are going to have a fascinating conversation as usual as we learn from people all around the world at all ages and stages of life. Stay tuned as we shift our dementia care from crisis to comfort.
Here we go. What you think about, you will bring about.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Alzheimer Speaks Radio. I hope you enjoyed our opening music. It's called Clarion Call by the Mark Arneson Band. And for those of you that are new to our show, Alzheimer Speaks is about sound information, not just sound bites. We like to have real conversations with real people and hear all of the cool things that give us hope and satisfaction on this journey so that we can continue to live a brilliant life alongside dementia. If you're looking for more services, products, and tools, please check out Dementia Map. We have over 150 categories. You can search some great articles as well as an events calendar. Just go to dementiamap.com. For those in the industry that have done some cool things, please apply for MODS Awards. They just opened up and they'll be taking applications till May 16th. This is for work that you've already done, and you can win between $5,000 and $25,000. Also, I would urge you to turn on PBS on April 6th because our friends have made a film. It's called Determined: Fighting Alzheimer's, and it follows 3 women who enrolled in a new study to try to prevent Alzheimer's disease. And they've been working on this for years. So check out what time that is running in your own community. Let's see, April 7th and 8th, I'm going to be in Winona, Minnesota. Excited to do an in-person event. That is with the Winona Dementia Friendly Community. I'm going to be screening a film called A Timeless Love, and we'll be doing a talk back April 7th at 6:30 and April 8th at 1 o'clock. It is free. And then April 20th, Artist Senior Living is sponsoring a virtual presentation I'm doing called As the Cookie Crumbles. So please feel free to check that out as well. And of course, we always have our support group. So Arthur's Senior Care is sponsoring Arthur's Memory Cafe. We do that the second and the fourth Wednesday of each month at 1 o'clock Central. Anybody around the world can attend that. And then if you are here in Minnesota, Brookdale North Oaks sponsors a Caregiver Connect program where we meet in person, and there's respite care for their loved one. That's the last Wednesday of each month. For this month, which is March of 2022, because people listen all the time to this, we are going to be virtual before we meet in person again. So I have 2 other things I want to set up for you. One is the Alz Authors. I don't know if you've heard of them, but if not, you need to. They have the most comprehensive collection of hundreds of carefully vetted books and blogs on all different types of dementia and caring situations. And the authors are sharing their personal stories and lessons learned, so it can really help you on your journey. For sure. They also offer a fabulous podcast called Untangling Alzheimer's and Dementia. You can find on any of the podcast platforms. We're going to hear from the Adaptive Equipment and Caregiving Corner about the footbar walker, and then we will be back with our guest today. And we're going to be talking about preserving dignity when incontinence hits.
I love the footbar walker, and let me tell you why. It is the option for my toolbox that I've been waiting for. Let's be honest, there are some clients who, despite our best rehab efforts, just aren't able to return to performing a sit-to-stand transfer on their own. Now I can offer my caregivers an easier, safer option that doesn't involve hoisting their loved one up from a sitting position. I don't recommend this walker for all of my clients, but I do recommend this walker for those caregivers looking for an easier, safer option with transfers. I would also encourage other therapists to add this walker to their toolbox. It's kind of like having my own mobile parallel bars for the client to pull up on. Whether it's a family caregiver at home helping a loved one with Parkinson's or dementia, CNAs in a long-term care facility assisting their patients, or therapists adapting to client and caregiver specific needs, we now have a very safe and effective option to offer in the footbar walker. Check this product out at thefootbarwalker.com. That's it for today from Adaptive Equipment and Caregiving Corner. Have a great day, and don't forget, if you can't do it, adapt it.
Well, I am so excited to have you guys on as a panel today. You are doing some really cool stuff together. And I know this is the first of a series that we're going to be doing. And like I said, I just love the work that you do. And I think this is going to be a fascinating conversation. So for our audience, I want to introduce each of these individuals. Deanna Vigliotta is the National Sales Manager for Seni, which is a premium adult incontinence product corporation. And she has had extensive experience and background in healthcare and sales management. And she joined Seni in 2019 to help them expand their brand in the US market by educating consumers and also senior living communities and home health about the importance of choosing a high quality, breathable product for incontinence. So welcome, Deanna. I appreciate your time with us today.
Thank you. I very much appreciate being here. Thank you.
Great. And Laurie Gredlein has been working in the healthcare industry and the senior field for over 15 years herself. She is an account executive for Seni and the Northeast region. And you are out in New Jersey, if I remember correctly.
That is correct. I live here.
Okay, well, sounds good. Thank you for joining us. And then we have Mark Turnbull, who is the co-owner of ComforCare Home Care in West Linn, Oregon, which he has been co-owner of since 2012. He is very well respected as a thought leader in the industry, and he's been involved in many aging-related organizations. In addition to being co-owner of ComforCare Home, in addition to overseeing ComforCare Home Care, Mark also oversees Royal Hospice and Vital Palliative Care, and he is host of his own podcast called Aging Today. So welcome, Mark. Thank you for participating in the show today.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. And it sounds like we're going to have a great show because we got the right coast and then we got the left coast and everything in between.
Yep, we got her covered. We got her covered. Well, before I get into my questions, I always like to ask my guests first if they've been personally touched by dementia. And it doesn't make any difference what your answer is. It just kind of gives people a baseline. So, Deanna, do you want to start?
Yeah, absolutely. Unfortunately, on my dad's side, my aunt had dementia for many, many years before passing from the disease itself. So I have been touched from a personal perspective, and then my goodness, very involved in trying to help people with dementia more and more and more and more each day. So from a professional level, I see it as well.
Okay, great. Laurie, how about you?
I have actually, my grandmother suffered from Alzheimer's, and she moved in with my dad and my stepmom so that she could get more care. So my stepmom mainly was the caregiver, and she was declining, and she passed away about 6 months ago. So yes, she suffered with the disease.
Okay, great. Thank you. And Mark, how about you?
Well, it started out, prior to becoming the owner of ComforCare Home Care, we didn't really have any family connection to dementia until I got involved in this industry. And of course, we have many, many clients that are living with dementia. And so that was my starting time to begin to develop and educate myself. And then ComforCare also has a very robust program called Dementia Wise. So that's where I got a lot of my training and practical application for our caregivers. And then just recently, in the last couple of years, my mom and dad, they're both alive, 92, and my mom is experiencing some mild cognitive impairment. And so that's beginning to be a challenge. And having that knowledge, that background coming into the relationship with my mom, I can explain to her some of the things that she's experiencing.
Okay. Well, it's hard. It's most of us are going to be touched at one point or another, if we want to admit it or not. And so it's good to get education and get connected. I want to talk today about this Preserving Dignity program that you've come up with Seni, that is wrapped around your incontinence product. I just want to know where did that idea come from? And why did you think it was important to pull in home care agencies to offer an incontinence program to them for their clients? And Deanna, I'm going to throw that to you first.
Sure, absolutely. Thanks, Laurie. It's interesting. I think back when we were just starting to hear about and read about the negative implications that came from the COVID pandemic, and reading more and more about people wanting to age longer in place at home. Our Seni team, interestingly enough, we've got a great team, but we kind of sat around and said, sat around tables and said, what can we do during this pandemic? We know there's a lot we can't do in terms of reaching people in senior communities and skilled health and facilities that normally, use our products, and we reach out to. Who can we reach out to? Who can we help? And so we started thinking about the home care industry and thinking, wait a minute, more people want to stay at home longer in place for a whole host of reasons. And wait, we can do that. We can help them sleep through the night uninterrupted. We can help the caregivers have a more pleasant work environment for people that may be severely incontinent, for adult children that maybe are working during the day and they're utilizing a ComforCare agency, for example, like Mark's, during the day to come in and assist mom or dad. Well, at night, if that adult child unintentionally purchases mom or dad an inferior incontinence product that may leak through the night or may make mom or dad feel uncomfortable or wet, and they get up and they fall, or they get up and they don't fall, but they need their sheets changed. Now that adult child is the one that's taking on those tasks and not getting any sleep, and they've got to get up for work the next day. So all of these variables, I don't even know who within our company planted the seed, and it's just evolved into, we can create this program and help so many people. And it has just evolved through the last couple of years, and it gets more and more traction and more exciting once home care agency owners understand the value of offering it, and their clients understand the value of, oh yeah, that makes sense, I'm going to join that program. And our hope is to utilize another avenue to improve the quality of life at the end of the day.
Gosh, when you talk about, family kind of dealing with the residuals of things not working well, I remember my mom and dad got in a really bad accident, and they came to live with us, and they both had broken arms and head injuries and all kinds of stuff. And my dad was a very proud man, and he did not want to use any incontinence products at all. And he also refused to sleep nude in the bed because he wanted his shorts on, but he could never get his shorts off. And so there would be pee all over my hardwood floors, in the bedroom, down the hallway, into the bathroom. And I remember going in, I think it was the second or third day, just in tears going, Dad, please, I'm not getting any sleep. This doesn't have to be this hard on all of us. I know you've got pride, but we've got to make this work. And I wish I would have been able to get him into an incontinence product where he just could sleep through the night. But there was, that discomfort, and there was that pride factor, which I think is so so important. But then on the other hand, you do have that exhaustion factor and that cleanup, or that thinking, oh my gosh, they're going to slip and they're going to fall and we're going to start all over again.
Yeah.
So I think those were really, really very, very good points that you made. Anything that you want to add to that, Laurie?
Yeah, telling your story, I was just thinking about my grandmother who had severe incontinence, mainly through the evening. So she was wearing two products, by the way. She was doubling up, which I hear more and more often from people. So we put her in a Seni product to try it out. And for the first time in years, she woke up dry. My stepmom did not have to launder her sheets that morning. She didn't even need to put the pajamas in the laundry. She just changed into her regular clothes and she was good. She couldn't even believe it. Now, my grandmother had Alzheimer's, so she wasn't really aware of what was going on. But it was wonderful to see her walk out and just ask for her morning coffee instead of having to get changed and change the sheets. None of that happened that morning. It was wonderful. So it's really nice when you see that change happen right in front of your own eyes. And yeah, it's difficult when it comes to some of the men because they are so prideful. And that's the wonderful thing about Seni is the dignity is just huge and it is a game changer.
Well, and just think of how she felt, not having to go through all that rigmarole, not feeling like she's a burden, to have to clean her up, clean the sheet. I mean, all of that stuff is lifted. And that is quality of life. That is giving dignity back. You can't deny that one at all. Deanna, how does your program work, and why is Seni such a great product versus some others out there? Because I've heard all kinds of gripes from a variety of products out there, and I know what some of my thoughts are on that, but I want to hear from you guys.
Yeah. So I guess I'll start with the products just to give a little bit of background for people that may not be familiar with Seni products. I think it's very important, and what we're trying to do is shift the mindset of culture to think about the why behind a product versus just thinking about a product is a product is a product. It's a disposable commodity. We're thinking, whoa, think about the why behind it. So with Seni products, the features, for example, full breathability. When people understand that full breathability means the skin vapors can breathe, thus reducing the risk of skin rashes and pressure sores and all that ugliness that comes with pressure sores, cost, worry, money, pain, all of it goes away when you have a fully breathable product. So I put a check mark there for Seni products. Super absorbency, we have a whole full line of products for people that might be lightly incontinent, moderately incontinent, severely incontinent. And instead of having to double up or use inserts, we don't believe in that. We believe in start at the level that you need and increase if need be. And that really ties back to a person-centered approach to care. Not everybody is a medium moderate. Not everybody wears a pull-up versus a brief. So we believe in a person-centered approach. And when you do that and you're in the right product, the right size, that's the other thing. Brand to brand to brand, sizing varies. So we're big on education. What size if somebody's wearing Seni? We give free product samples so folks can try before they buy. So these features, inner leak guards is so key to keeping people dry and sheets dry, having inner leak guards. So the features of the Seni products are very premium quality, and even the softness. They're made of what they call soft non-wovens. In layman's terms, soft materials that people feel comfortable. There's not a crunchy, squeaky noise when people walk. That's huge. If you have your faculties and you're going out in public, you don't want people to know that with every step there's a noise coming from you. So all of these features is the why Seni products. And at the end of the day, it goes right back to they help improve the quality of life for people that are incontinent. And so that would be the answer about why Seni. And the program itself is kind of interesting. Through home care agencies, Mark's ComforCare, for example, we work with a host of distributor partnerships. And ComforCare, interestingly enough, correct me if I'm wrong, Mark, but they've got about 240 locations nationwide, and they're corporate. We have a strong relationship, and they have vetted Seni products. And so any ComforCare home care agency that wants to roll out a program, we help guide with a continence care program tools, resources. What does that mean? Well, the benefits for the agency, the benefits for the clients. We help with letters to their clients of saying, hey, we're rolling out a program. If you're interested, here are the meat and potatoes to the program. We have client brochures that home care agencies like Mark can give to their clients. So we make it easy for a home care agency owner to implement a program. And then we make it easy for a client to join the program, with the whole focus being almost like a whole person approach to, let's improve outcomes at home. Let's keep those clients in their home longer, healthier, and happier. So, you know, the way that it works, if Mark is a caregiver that's in a home and they notice that, gee, this particular client might be challenged with incontinence, we might be changing the sheets every day, that client might be uncomfortable, they can have a real simple conversation of, hey, have you ever heard of Seni products? And can I bring you a sample and just try it? If you like it, terrific, just try it. And they bring a sample. The client may say, usually they do, I love it. How do I get it? And then that caregiver can say, we can get you that very easily. And then Mark would work with one of the distributor partners, for example, that ComforCare works with, McKesson, that they work with, and then the products can be ordered and then delivered right to the door of the client. So it's very simple to access the products. Or Mark may want to have them shipped to his agency, or have one of his caregivers hand deliver to check in on that particular client. So we make it simple for all the right reasons. And that's pretty much the program. Laurie, correct me if I'm missing anything in that.
The only thing I was going to add to that was the beautiful thing about this program, I think, in my opinion, is the fact that it takes all the work off of the family members. So the daughter, the son doesn't need to run out to the big box stores. They don't need to go on Amazon and find that mom size, or what they think mom size isn't there online. It's not in the big box store. You know, so often what happens is the families are trying to do their best for their parents. And we've all, you know, a lot of us have been there. We end up not really knowing the details, right? We don't know what we don't know. So this is, you know, first, second time of them buying incontinence products for their parents, and they don't even know what size their parents are. They don't know what they wear. Do they wear a brief? Do they wear underwear? They have no idea. They try, they just, you know, think, okay, she weighs this much, she's this tall, so let me get a size medium, brings it home. The medium doesn't fit. She's having issues now. It can turn into a nightmare for these poor loved ones that are just trying to help their parents. And yeah, we take all that work away from them, and they can just go right to Mark, an agency owner, and say, okay, I want this ordered. We help with, you know, we help Mark and his caregivers with getting the right size. They get to try samples for free for a couple days to make sure the product's the right size, make sure it works correctly. And then, like Deanna said, I mean, most often those caregivers come back and say, okay, the family wants to order from now on. And these home care agencies just make it so easy for them. And they just add it to their invoice and done and done. So it's a piece of cake, and it's, you know, it's delivered right to their front door.
Well, there's so many benefits to this. Again, getting back to the whole dignity thing, but I just think of, you know, if someone does leak through during the night. You've got that odor on top of everything. So as soon as somebody walks in the door, that alone can change a person's life. You mentioned the squeakiness or the crunchiness. That's something people don't think about, but yet if you hear it, your eyes, you're turning right away to check that out. And everybody knows what that is. Those are huge factors you're pointing out. Or, when you mentioned, I don't know what kind of underwear my dad wears or my mom wears, if they're wearing briefs or what, then that's an uncomfortable conversation for family to have. That's right up there with the finances of, you don't need to know that, type stuff that people struggle with. So when a home health care agency can take that on, and when that burden can be relieved, because I have heard many times where family goes, how did we not know she needed more? Because there's no tickler system in the family, double checking that, because there's so many other things going on. And so to know, just to take that relief off, we're not going to be without. And it's one less thing that we have to monitor. That's fabulous. That's absolutely fabulous from a family perspective. Laurie, what do you think some of the benefits are to the agency owners in terms of offering this program to their clients?
Oh my gosh. Having talked to a handful of agency owners, what I have heard from them is that this is such a novel idea. They're surprised that other companies didn't think of this sooner. They love the fact that we are right there to guide them, to give them the tools and the resources. We help them with the flyers. We give them, here's a flyer you can send out to your family, your clients. You can send this letter template. We provide them with all of that, including the free samples. We'll even ship, if the agency has some storage, we'll even ship the agency office free samples so that they can then have the caregivers bring it right into the home for them to try the Seni products. And we offer so many different things to these agency owners, and it's also a way of keeping connected with their client. So if a client goes, let's say, God forbid, they have a fall at home, well, the services from that agency are now no longer needed temporarily. Let's say they go to the hospital and then they go right from there to a short-term rehab. Well, now if they're on that program, that client is now really connected to that agency, because when they're in the hospital, when they're in their skilled nursing short-term rehab, they're going to get asked by that social worker, have you ever worked with a home care agency in the past? Well, of course, that agency that they're working with, that they have a continence care program, that's going to be top of mind. So they're immediately going to say, oh, I use ComforCare, and, go from there. They're going to contact ComforCare, and it's a way to keep in touch with your client, even, like I said, even though they're not using your services at their house right now, they're in this hospital or skilled nursing, they're still keeping in touch with that client. So again, it just keeps them top of mind. And that's just one of the many benefits for that agency to stay connected to that client.
Yeah, I would think too, because this is a complaint I hear, and Mark, you probably know more about this than any of us, but when something like that happens and they go to the hospital, a lot of times the hospital has their own home health care agency, and then they direct them there, even though they have to allow people where they want to go. You stay connected, you're familiar with this client. That is a huge comfort in and of itself, versus switching up who is now going to be taking care of them once they're out of the hospital. I don't know if you've run into that, but I know in Minnesota, I hear that happening all the time, where it's like, well, yeah, you were using them, but we have our own.
Yeah, but that's a little bit different than the home health and then in-home care. So once you've started services on the in-home care side, when they discharge the patient back home, usually we're very well connected to the hospital discharge nurse, so that we can arrange all of those transition features that need to take place, we can make sure that all those things are done properly.
Good. Well, and that makes their job easier too, if it's
Yeah.
all set up.
Yeah.
Deanna, anything that you want to add to what Laurie was talking about in terms of benefits?
No, I think, at the end of the day, it just keeps always circling back to our philosophy is use a good quality product, and you can age longer in place at home, happier, healthier, longer. And that, starts there. And then as people progress in aging, and then they move into, if they need to, independent or ALF, the Seni products can follow them and allow them to stay longer in place in independent living, allow them to stay longer in place in ALF. So it's just such a positive ripple effect when a good quality product is used. It makes all the difference in the world for everybody involved in the care of that individual.
Well, and I think of, even when my mom was in the nursing home, somebody would run out of something and they'd be grabbing somebody else's incontinent products. I mean, that happened a lot, but they didn't fit, and I mean, that was a really, really common issue I saw. And, one size doesn't fit all. It's not supposed to fit all. There's a reason you have a variety of these products. Well, let me go to Mark, because I want you to share a little bit more background about yourself and your ComforCare agency. Some people might not be familiar with your brand and how it stands out. So tell us what you think we need to know.
Sure. So about 8 years ago, Christina and I began to make a change in our personal lives. I was working in the corporate world, and I said, done. I want to get back to building my own business, and I want to make a difference in the world. So we started researching and caring for people fit well with my background. I was a former pastor at one time, and then I went into the corporate world. So converging those two worlds was the perfect storm for me. And it's a ministry. It really is. It's meeting the needs, the physical needs of people. And we've been doing it for about 9 years now. And we've grown a very effective company that is meeting the needs of people in the Portland market. And ComforCare is a franchise. So like you said earlier, there's about 240 franchisees across the nation. So they're probably in your neighborhood. All you got to do is look for ComforCare. There's no tea in ComforCare. We always say we don't serve tea, we just serve coffee. So there's no tea in ComforCare. But one of the things that we began to do right out of the barrel is making sure that our caregivers were trained properly. And one of the things that I think is a foundation is that what we teach at our ComforCare West Linn company is that our caregivers are first. And so we spend a lot of time training our caregivers. And caregivers, when you become a caregiver, at least a professional caregiver, your job is to observe and report. And that's the professional job of a caregiver, is to observe and report. So how that translates into everyday care is, and especially when it comes to incontinence, is that you begin to look for signs of UTIs. You begin to look for changes in the client as they're living day to day, and then you report that back to the office. You report that to our RN. You report it to the family. And some of the things that that you need to be paying attention to as a caregiver. There's a lot of different things. Obviously, when you get there in the morning and that client has been by themselves all night long and the bed is wet, well, that particular brief is not large enough to handle the capacity of urine that they're depositing, or maybe there's a bowel movement. And so you got to make sure that you get the right fit. So that's the job of a caregiver, is to observe what's going on and then make the recommendations to the family and to our RN, and RN comes in and makes sure that the caregivers also have the particular training that they need. Some of the other things that you should be looking for, when it comes to preventing UTIs, urinary tract infections, because that's the outcome of having inadequate, product, if you will. And one of the things that we found about the Seni product is that Seni, the absorbency, oh my gosh, the absorbency is off the charts. So, for example, we are taking care of my father-in-law in our own home. He came home with us because he's no longer able to remain independent on his own accord, and he's incontinent. And he's a rather large man. He's about 6'3". So the amount of volume that man can produce, we found that the products that he was using just weren't adequate. So we switched over to Seni, and it is a world of difference. The amount of absorbency that brief can hold. We even, when he has a bowel movement, and where he almost takes a shovel to get it all out. You can literally take water and pour over the privates while he's still in the brief that has been absorbed all night long. So I hate to get a little graphic, but that's the reality. And it literally can hold it, and then we can make the change necessary. But it's a pretty amazing product.
Well, that, people don't understand too, how important when you mention like the UTIs, because especially in dementia, the behaviors and the changes that can occur, and people don't always associate them with a UTI, but things can get really hanky really quickly, and it can be just a minor fix, or better off prevented as a whole. But I can tell you stories up and down for days on dementia and UTIs and the different reactions people had to them. I remember my own mother had a UTI, and I went to visit her at the nursing home, and she was in her wheelchair with her head down, which was not her. And then I got her to put her head up, and her eyes were literally rolling back in her head. And I'm thinking, there was no way they were going to convince me that she wasn't being overdrugged. And I'm like, she's overdosing. Look at her eyes. And they're like, it's a UTI, Laurie. And I'm like, no way. Because I never would have associated that with the UTI. And it was like, sure as heck it was, or people, seeing bugs or getting aggressive, or, there's just so many different symptoms that complicate things. And if you can avoid that, plus the infections that can happen, and some turn septic on those things. This is critical. And when you're that uncomfortable, as a care receiver, you're going to be cranky and you're going to be irritable, and that's going to ripple out to everybody around you. So, avoiding those situations is absolutely huge. And I loved what you said, Mark, about observing and reporting. You're not taking over. You're not going, oh my gosh, here we go again. And you see this sometimes where people are ripping them off and they're frustrated, and all that is spewing out. And talk about making a person feel horrible, about being cared for, because that's not,
that's part of the dignity that we often talk about, is that our caregivers support our clients' desire to live their best life possible. How do you do that? Well, you preserve their dignity. You give them a quality of life, and you take away the uneasiness of something that is so private. Think about you and I living 80 years of privacy, and now all of a sudden you're inviting a complete stranger into your home to help you with your incontinence. How degrading that can be. So we train our caregivers to make sure that they approach it professionally, and they don't make a big deal out of it. But again, going back to the job of a caregiver, whether you're a professional or a family caregiver, your job is to observe what's going on in the home, observe some of the symptoms that you're seeing. And some of those maybe, one of the symptoms that could be really simple is, mom is saying, well, I got a burning sensation when I pee, or I have that intense urge to pee. Or one of the things that you can do is either look in the toilet if they're continent, but if they're incontinent, look in the brief. And is the color, what is the color of the urine? Is it brown? Mm-hmm. Is it yellow? Is it clear? I mean, those are all signals to, a potential bacteria that has gone from the urethra all the way to the bladder, to the kidneys, and the pain, begin to check those things. And those are all things that a professional caregiver is observing and then reporting back to the family and to our RN so that we can go in and give them their best life possible.
Just did one of my dementia chats where I facilitate a conversation with people with dementia. And the other day we were talking about how different health issues can affect their dementia. And it was very interesting, because I think a lot of times when someone is still social and able to talk, you expect them to be able to tell you they have pain.
Yeah.
You expect them to tell you that they had an accident. You expect them, but they don't always have those sensations, or they can't verbalize and tell you those sensations. And I think of how many homes I've walked into. I worked in residential real estate 25 years before doing this. How many homes I walked into and there's towels over the chairs because somebody might have an accident, or you walk in and there's that odor, and you can tell just about every piece of furniture in there has been affected. And maybe they can't smell it, but everyone else can. And again, being observant is really a very, very powerful thing.
Yeah. I think the other thing too is that, you have to be careful that the individual is dry to help prevent any UTIs. And that goes a long ways towards the Seni products. The one issue that I have with my mom and dad's generation, they were very conservative generation. And they saved everything. And my mom, and I have this talk with her consistently, and many of our other clients as well, that, when you use a brief, you should change it every day or when it gets wet, because that's when the bacteria begins to develop. And so the downside to Seni products, and Deanna and Laurie, you may say, no, stop, don't tell me the downside. But the downside is that they're so absorbent that generation thinks, oh, it's not sopping wet, it's not dripping, so I can continue to wear it. And I keep telling my mom, no, change. You need to change so that you don't develop that UTI. Because she did go septic on it, and she was very fortunate. My sister caught her in time to where she could have passed. Yeah. So it's very, very important that we stay clean in our privates, we stay dry in our privates, and we make sure that we have the right products to keep us dry. Yep.
It might be a weight thing. Okay, here's a dry one and here's yours.
Yeah.
Feel the difference. But again, if you're dealing with somebody with dementia, they're not going to remember that typically. But I think that was an excellent point of cutting corners and being conservative. And my mom was a saver as well. I mean, she was still saving paper towel rollers and toilet paper rollers because somebody's kid probably needs them for a project for Girl Scouts or school. It was like, no, we can let these go, or we can give them away. One of the two. How prevalent is incontinence in working with your clients? My guess is it's probably more prevalent than people think, because they're so uncomfortable talking about it.
Yeah, and it's a bodily function that we all do every day. And so it is prevalent. It is probably one of the number one ADLs that, a caregiver needs to be watching for, observing. And ADL, for our listeners that don't know what that is, that's an activity of daily living. Those are the things that you and I do on a daily basis. And as we age, sometimes we need a little more assistance with those things. And one of them is toileting, going to the bathroom. And when you start wearing a brief, then, you need to pay the caregiver or the family caregiver, professional caregiver needs to make sure that they're paying attention to that, because it is so prevalent, because it's a human activity that we do 2 or 3 times a day, or and a bowel movement, at least you should be doing once a day. But as we know, as we age, maybe it's once every 2 or 3 days. But, those are things that a caregiver should be watching for.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I had a really good friend whose mom was having an issue, but didn't want to admit she was having an issue. So she just restricted her liquids. Well, then she passed out and cracked her head open.
Yeah.
And that is a real common thing. Well, I just won't drink as much, and it's like, you don't have to do that, because that being dehydrated is not good for you either. And that can trigger so many different things off in the body. And I would imagine you run into that as well, Mark.
Oh, absolutely. And, what we try to tell our clients is, to drink, 2 to 3 glasses, about, what is it, 30? I think they want 32 ounces, but I don't even drink 32 ounces. I'd be going to the bathroom every minute of the day. But, if that's the medical, what they're asking for, then great. That's a good goal to shoot for. But what I usually tell my clients is to start tapering off around 4 o'clock in the afternoon, so that you're not going to the bathroom, every 2 to 3 hours when you should be sleeping, because it's so important that we get and fall into that deep REM sleep at night, because that's when the brain janitors come out and sweep all the toxins out of our brain to keep us from developing deeper into dementia. So, where the plaques and tangles start to interfere with our lives. So sleep is so important. And sometimes if you drink too much liquid during the day and you continue on into the evening, then you're going to be up all night, and that's not good either. So you got to find that balance where people are at.
Exactly. Mark, what has been your experience and that of your care partner's experience with using the Seni products?
Well, it's been a game changer, actually. And I'm not saying that just to give a commercial to Seni. It really, my father-in-law had a little mini stroke the other day. So he goes to the hospital and they released him same day. He was fine. Mini stroke is a mini stroke, but he was fine relatively. When they discharged him back home, they changed his brief. Usually, sometimes hospitals do that, sometimes they don't. And we were grateful that they did. However, he came home in a brief that was paper thin, didn't hold much. And so, of course, when we got him at home, he was already wet. So with Seni, he can literally, this is a man that's about 6'3". He literally can go all night long. He drinks 3 tall glasses of water throughout the day and into the evening. And then many times, because he's incontinent, he'll have a BM, a bowel movement, even in the night. So we've found that the Seni products can hold his volume and support the volume that his body produces, whereas other products that we've tried cannot do that. My mom's side, she uses more pull-ups, if I can be, a little bit personal about my mom, but she finds that the pull-ups are best for her because she's a little more independent than my father-in-law. But and then we have other clients with dementia because they're incontinent and they need to get through the night. We found that the Seni products are the best.
Okay. Well, it's one thing to get endorsed from a work standpoint, and it's a whole nother thing to get endorsed on a personal aspect when it's your own parents. So to me, those are really strong endorsements for Seni and what it does, because we're just we're just more invested in our own family, no matter how you cut it.
Yeah.
You can be this invested in your clients, but your family is still going to be up here. And when you're the one caring for them, you really appreciate that too, because it lightens your load and gives them back the dignity and can get people back to living fully. So,
and my caregivers report back to me that the Seni products that they're using with their clients, it makes their job easier. That they're not so when you have a brief that doesn't have the absorbency to hold the amount of volume that is coming out of a human being, what that does is that spills over into the bed. And so the caregiver now has to do laundry, and on it goes. And you got the sheets of the bed, you got the clothes of the client, and on it goes. So it's very, very important to have these basic foundational pieces like a good brief that Seni puts out as your best. That's your best friend, your best partner.
well, and it might be, and I don't know if you can really track this, but I'm even thinking help in fall reduction. When someone's not, they got to go and they feel like it's not being held, versus they can be more casual in their gait and not rushed, or they're not slipping in their urine. All of those things are huge benefits. Plus, it's a whole game changer if it's home care agency or family, if you don't have to deal with all those extra things that happen because the product wasn't the correct one. It wasn't a quality one. It didn't fit right. I mean, now you're going from literally, it can be like 10 tasks down to one.
Yeah. And I think that, communication, I'm speaking obviously from the level of a professional caregiver, but that caregiver, their job, observe and report. And they need to communicate to the family, the rest of the family, what they're seeing during the day. And then we provide the medical help through our RN to provide, additional solutions, because our caregivers really aren't designed and equipped and able to provide, some solutions other than what they can communicate to our RN, and our RN can communicate to their doctor. And then all of those pieces, and the beauty of an agency, of a well-functioning agency, is to be the centerpiece to bring all of those entities together and to be the center of communication, so that everybody is on the same page to help, their loved one to live their best life possible.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, Laurie, anything that you want to add?
I was just going to say, when you guys were talking about reducing the risk of the falls, the UTIs, the pressure sores, I used to work in nursing homes, and I can tell you that all three of those things can result in a hospital admission. We're talking about big dollars. We're talking about spending the night in the hospital, possible surgery if they have fallen and they broke a hip or what have you. These are all really, really high cost things that can happen to people. And it all comes back to, are they in a better product? Because that might have been prevented. And it's amazing, to think that one product could have changed all those outcomes. And you're right, Laurie, I didn't know this until I started working in a nursing home. I had no idea the symptoms that a person has with UTIs. Mm-hmm. It can be masked by so many different symptoms. And it was unbelievable for me to learn that. I'm not a clinician, but for me to see that with our patients, it was unbelievable. That, you mean to tell me a UTI can actually cause some sort of shift in their personality? They would get aggressive. They might start hallucinating. And Sure enough, urinalysis was ordered and they have a UTI, and many of them went out to the hospital for, maybe a 24-hour period. Again, big dollars. And then back to people doubling up. I'm hearing this more and more often these days. People are doubling up to hope that it will contain and it won't be leaking anymore. The problem is they're doubling up on the same product. It's not working. They're still leaking. They're still having those wet sheets in the morning, and it's costing them double the money because they're using double the amount of products versus using a product like Seni, get them through the night, super absorbent, inner leak guards. It goes on, and it just ripples out from there. But there's a lot of things to consider.
Yeah. Well, and that sleeping through the night from a family stance is huge, because then the care partner can sleep through the night too. Because if there's an accident in the middle of the night, then you're like, oh my gosh, here we go. And I mean, I've been there, I've done it. It's exhausting, and people get snappy because they're frustrated, they're tired, they're getting sleep deprived. It can be a huge issue. You mentioned, Laurie, high cost, but I think the other thing that is really important, especially when it comes for any family, that high cost translates into high stress for the family. And for a person with dementia, it increases their symptoms on top of it. And so they get more disoriented. And we hear stories over and over again that somebody goes to the hospital and they don't come back the same person. And that's with or without a surgery. If there's an anesthesia, that really complicates it, but people can become very disoriented, and it can drop them down in terms of progression or up, depending on which way you're looking at the scale of progression going there. Deanna, any other comments that you wanted to make?
Gosh, I just have to say, Mark, you know how I feel about your agency and yourself and your passion, but just I love the points that you bring up. As we're continuing to talk about this, what's triggering through my mind that I think is a key point, because it affects everybody full circle, but especially people with dementia that have progressed to a point where their viewpoint is like this, right? And someone's coming at them to help change them. You can start to have that increased aggressive behavior. So you have stress, right? Stress for that client. And then you have stress, unfortunately, for that caregiver. And so when we talk about the super absorbency, the number of changes, typically with Seni products, 3 or 4 changes a day is all that's needed. That lowers cost, but more importantly, in my opinion, that lowers stress, Laurie. To your point, It lowers stress for the client being changed, and it lowers stress for the caregiver. It also helps lower risk to the caregivers. I know I've got a friend that works in loss consultant for healthcare risk management, and she has shared with me the staggering numbers of caregivers, professional caregivers, that go out on workers' comp, typically because of a shoulder injury or a back injury, often associated with changing people who are either living at home or living in communities. And if you're using a product that's inferior, and you got 6, 7, 8, 9 or more changes a day, and you reduce that to 3 or 4 a day, it's better for everybody, and the reduction of risk just keeps going down. And that's, at the end of the day, that's what we're all about, is lower the negative clinical outcomes, increase the engagement, increase the quality of life, and it works and becomes very very exciting. I just love the conversations, because literally, I think sometimes one at a time, but we are changing people to have a better quality of life. And we're so grateful for everybody that we cross paths that plays a part in that. So thank you are my final words. I can't say it enough. I have enjoyed this conversation.
Good. I've learned a lot as well. Now, to get a hold of both these companies, so for Seni, you can email Deanna at Deanna and I'll spell her last name, Vigliotta and the overall company name is tzmo-global.com. And then for Mark, you can email him at mark@caringinoregon.com. Thank you all. This has just been a really interesting conversation, and I appreciate your time with us today. And I appreciate your conscious caring to really improve the world. This is a tough conversation, to get people educated, but it is so important. And I have to say, with Seni, one of the things I love is the way that you guys do market. And I'll just use the example on Dementia Map. You can go in, you can, get your little coupon for, some free samples, but they also have on their photos, things that'll pop up in a PDF format on how to measure, how to know it's the right size, the variety of the products. And, we didn't even get into the variety of products that can also help with skincare and things as well. You've just made it really simple, because I think most people would have never thought of, I should measure for that. Or, there's different sizes. I mean, you just you go in the store. It's kind of like sending your husband in for tampons. I'll just grab a pack off the shelf, and we'll make that work. And it's like, no, that's not how it works anymore. People are getting more educated and more comfortable that this is, like you said, Mark, it's natural body function, and we need to deal with it in a dignified fashion. So thank you all so much for your time today. And for our listeners, like, click, and share. Don't keep these nuggets to yourself. That's how we change things, is by having conversations, getting things out of the closet, and improving lives. Till next time. Bye-bye.